Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and today I am doing my March book haul. I did do better in March. I can tell because this month I only have one stack of books. For the last couple I've had 2 stacks of books sitting there waiting for me to read them. This month I only have one. Let's get into them. These are actually reverse chronological because that's how they get stacked. So the first/last one is The Bird King by G. Willow Wilson. This is a book, set in 1491 in Granada, Spain. Where the Moors are still ruling until 1492 when Isabella and Ferdinand kick them out and take over. But it's through the eyes of a concubine in the royal court there, and I love her writing. I've read one of her books and it was amazing. So I'm very excited to get into one of her novels since the last one was an autobiography. This just sounds amazing and I'm really excited. Then I got The Culper Ring by the Charles River edition. I got this one free, which makes me feel better because it's super short. It's just a little pamphlet, and I really hate it when I don't look at the page numbers, but then I forget and then we're here. But at any rate, I watched Turn a couple of months ago, and I really enjoyed that, and so it kind of got me into the mood to read more about the American Revolution, and specifically the Culper Spy Ring, so I picked up the pamphlet. Then, I've been wanting this book, but I wanted the paperback, so I got Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silva Moreno Garcia when it came out late February. This one is about a young woman who I believe accidentally awakens a Mayan death god in 1920s Mexico. It's not a setting I've ever read a book in, and I'm all about awakening death gods because that just sounds great. Next I got one that I've been eyeing for a while. I first saw it on Sophie from Portland Pages channel, and that is The Secret Barrister, which is by an anonymous author. This looks at the legal system in the UK, the problems, and I assume that there's some good things in there, but you know, just questions and problems and stuff like that in the UK legal system. It sounds fascinating, especially since I am involved in the legal system here, to compare the two. I'm very intrigued. Next we have Arthur the Seeing Stone, which I got the recommendation for from Abby over at Autumn of Palonor's channel by Kevin Crossley Holland. She said she read this when she was young and absolutely loved it. And it takes place in 1199 with Arthur de Caldecott. His father's friend Merlin gives him a shining black stone and he sees stories of his namesake, King Arthur. So it's sort of an Arthur retelling, sort of not, and I'm very excited. Then we have The Long Shining Waters by Danielle Sozin, which is a book that takes place in 1622 following an Ojibwe woman and a Norwegian couple fishing the North Shore in 1902, and then a bar owner in 2000, all up along the North Shore of Lake Superior. This sounds really good, and we all know I live in Minnesota, want to get to Duluth, so I will be reading this hopefully soon. One of the pre-orders is 5, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hallie Rubenhold. This is a nonfiction, and it is what it sounds like. It talks about the 5 women that Jack the Ripper killed. So the back of the book says that the person responsible was never identified, but the character created by the press to fill that gap has become far more famous than any of these 5 women. Now, in this gripping narrative of their 5 lives, Hallie Rubenhold, finally sets the record straight and gives these women back their stories. I tend not to read so much about Jack the Ripper. I find it fascinating, but it's in Victorian England as opposed to Elizabethan England, which, as we all know, is not my #1 time. But I am curious, and it sounds good. Then I bought a couple of children's books before the library closed, so I got them cheap. The first one being Witches by Roald Dahl. I read this, I want to say in 7th grade. I'm fairly certain it was in 7th grade. My 7th grade English teacher was amazing, and let's leave it at that. She was amazing, because I'll go on for hours. The Witches is about this boy who doesn't believe in witches, but his grandma tells him all these stories, and as we go along, he realizes maybe those stories are more than just stories. I adored this book. I love Roald Dahl, and it was cheap. Next, we have another one that I read when I was young, which is The Tale of Despereaux by Kate DiCamillo. And this is about a mouse who goes on an adventure. It was very cute, and I remember liking it a lot, so I'd like to reread it. And the last one is actually one that I didn't really enjoy all that much, which is Walk Two Moons by Kari-ng. I remember thinking the theme, you know, don't judge somebody until you've walked in their shoes, was a decent theme, but I didn't really enjoy the actual book. However, I read this one in 6th grade, so there's a decent chance that it was just my little immature self being a snot. I would like to reread it, and at some point I would like to own pretty much all the books I've ever read. There are some that I can think of that I've gotten rid of and that I will never buy again because they were dumb. Like 50 Shades of Grey, for example. But this is one that I would actually like to own. On that trip to the library, I also got Prairie Fires by Caroline Fraser. This is, well, it's nonfiction. And so Caroline Fraser is basically writing a biography of Laura Ingalls Wilder. She fills in the gaps of all of the classic books and sort of gives us more of a behind-the-scenes look at what the not-so-nice parts of her life were. You know, like blizzards and prairie fires, neither of which are great, but Laura Ingalls Wilder experienced, I would imagine, several of those. And so we get to see a more in-depth look. Next we have, of course, House of Earth and Blood, or Crescent City, I'm not sure which, by Sarah J. Maas. This is an urban fantasy. It is her newest adult book, her only adult book as of right now. It takes place, I don't know where, New Orleans? Does that sound right? Well, it says Crescent City's underbelly. Crescent City's New Orleans, right? Sure. I don't know. Anyway, it sounded really interesting, and I do enjoy Sarah J. Maas. She's addictive and fun and fast-paced, so I thought, why not? I haven't read it yet. I would like to. There's a scratch on my cover. That's just rude. So I will get to this hopefully sooner rather than later. Down to the last 2 books. Bone Crier's Moon by Catherine Purdy, which is a YA fantasy, and if I can get the pages to work, there we go. Our main characters have the power, Bone Criers have the power to ferry the spirits of the dead into the underworld. Comes with a sacrifice. The cost of the Bone Criers, one true love. So our main character knows she has to kill her one true love. And surprise, surprise, it turns out she doesn't want to, so I assume that they go through a quest to find a way not to. I mean, it's YA fantasy. There's only so many ways it can go, really. But it does sound good. It's a very different take. It's a very dark take. So should be interesting. And my last book, I told you I did better, is Wicked As You Wish by Rune Geppetto, who also wrote The Bone Witch, which I have never read. This is a Snow Queen retelling. It's in the retelling name, Snow Queen. I love the Snow Queen because I like the cold, and it's just fun. I also just really like that story. So this sounded fascinating and very different, and I'm excited to read this. I'm excited to read all of these. Whether or not I get to these in the next 2 months is, well, you guys know. It's very unlikely, but I will get to them at some point. It's just gonna depend. So those are all of the books I bought in March. Like I said, I did much better, and I'm very happy. So, hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!